Hello and welcome to the DrivingMaul show on the week that Samoa have taken the upper hand in their Rugby World Cup qualification doubleheader against Tonga. I was at that game. Hopefully you saw my interviews on the old Facebook channel. And the person who didn't see them is just me shaking his head. It's Arswin. How you doing, sir?
Hi, good. How you doing?
Not bad at all. Now, just been searching through my bag. Obviously, you've got to find my hat and all this kind of stuff and be ready for the show. And I came across...
found dinner?
I found dinner. I found a chocolate muffin. Because at Mount Smart Stadium, my first time there, the press lady had catered for 15 media people to turn up. And so we had 15 people's worth of muffins. And whilst I made a good go of it, there's only so many muffins I can eat because there was no one else there.
So, next time to take some Tupperware containers when you go to these rugby events and it's media, because there's going to be food left over to bring home.
So yeah. Well, I think, okay. To be fair, the worst one of the thing. Okay, so there were two other ladies there with me just before the game who were both from TV1's Pacifica Culture Channel. So all they wanted to do was talk to people in the crowd and weren't really there for the rugby. And then someone turned up. I think she was from Radio New Zealand, but she's a student who just does some stuff part time, kind of for Radio New Zealand. Turned up at like half time for the second half and did the interviews with me. So she was the other person down in the interview section zone. And then one of the photographers also joined us for the post match interviews. But yeah. Rugby World Cup qualifier, international test match between Samoa and Tonga, and basically stuff NZ Herald. What other websites are there out there? TV1, TV3, all those people really just couldn't care. They couldn't.
No. Oh, look, and I mean, it's an interesting thing. I just don't know how to explain it. Really, is You could blame the I suppose World Rugby in terms of the way that they promoted the game, and it's just like then you can ask us like what's going on in the media world. I honestly just lost. This is like does basically TV needs or sort of the media circles need there to be a buzz about the game already for them to attend. Otherwise, they go, nobody's interested, I won't turn up. That's basically the way it seems. As opposed to in the old days, where it's actually the media, effectively, that created the buzz about the event.
Yeah, and I guess if you're not going to create the buzz, be part of the buzz, then you've got to say that that's why people like New Zealand rugby, like the Super Rugby franchises, decide that they want to, or decide they have to, be the line of communication to the fans because you're not doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there are times when we do criticise New Zealand rugby and Super Rugby franchises and rugby in general for cutting out the media. But here, where the media don't bother turning up, there's it's bad, really. So thank you, Simon, who thought my interviews were good at that one. I must admit, it was very nice having the Radio New Zealand lady there because she could then pronounce the players, the coaches, and the players' names, which saved me from having to do that. And I could just go, "Hey, coach, what do you think of this question?" Or and not have to bother with because as I think it's pretty famous that my Pacifica pronunciations leave something to be desired. Is putting it nicely. So hey, I do try though, folks.
And also from Simon, I suppose, is like going on to other what some developments in the rugby world in terms of results. Let's not forget, Madagascar.
Perhaps the one of the top 5 rugby supported countries in the world. They regularly get 50 to 60,000 for their international games and for their club finals. So
And for those people out there, Paul doesn't do sarcasm, so that's for real.
I'm being serious. They do. They get some of the biggest crowds in the world for what is tier 4 rugby internationally. It's not. It's amazing.
Actually, just to talk about that result with Madagascar, and obviously with Namibia as well. There's some interesting things happening in the African group, for want of a term. The likes of Kenya, and being eliminated from the qualifying process. My mind's gone blank. Zimbabwe, etc. Also, I think it was. Teams that we've got used to seeing at Rugby World Cups have already been eliminated from the qualifiers.
Now, so looking obviously with Wikipedia being the authoritative source of this kind of stuff, Burundi, Cameroon, Madagascar, Tunisia, and Zambia have been eliminated so far. So Kenya is still on track.
Are they? My bad.
Or well, not necessarily on track. They're still part of it, shall I say? Namibia, who we would say always get there, lost their opening game to Ivory Coast, 24-13. So their 52-10 win over Madagascar was important. Otherwise, they would have been in some real problems. Then Madagascar beat Ivory Coast 24-19. So Namibia getting through purely on points difference out of their pool, and will now face the runner-up in Pool D. But trying to get games played in Africa at the moment is pretty difficult with the whole COVID situation there. And good for Stephen Harris to join us. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, very good, thank you. Privilege to be on the show, Paul. Hi, Ashwin, how are you?
Oh, good, Steve. I see you're already prepared for your travels on Saturday morning.
I don't know about prepared, but we'll see how we go.
The Northern Top's on already.
It is too. Oh, damn,
that's all you need.
I hope he changes it before then, else it could be a bit smelly by Saturday.
Oh, listen, I've got plenty of them. I've got a jersey for every day. In fact, I could probably start a team actually. So.
Oh, you could. Hey! Hook a brother up.
Good.
If you go there, Ashwin, that's sore territory, I can tell you. So evening, Neymar, Allez le Bleu. Yep. We will have a chat about how they went against Australia. Batman, yes, I know it's coming home to Rome. Nice. As these boys will tell you about the we're in the our chat group on Facebook in Facebook Messenger after that game, and I'm like, I don't even know what the result is. All I know is that because of their comments in there that England had lost, but I didn't know how. But anyway, there we go. I really don't care about football, so yes, unfortunate. But there we go. Namibia, Ivory Coast, Senegal, and Kenya have all made it through to the quarterfinals of the Africa Cup to get that qualification through on that side of things. But you did touch on it there, so let's move on and have a quick chat about club rugby. And Stephen, this weekend you and I are heading up to Northland because it's Club Rugby Finals Day up in Northland at Seminole Stadium. It's $5 to get in, and kids are gold coin donations. We've got 3 games: Premier Reserve final between KMO and Mid Northern. I'll be honest, the two sides I'll know nothing about. I mean, reserve grade rugby, reserve grade Northern Club Rugby. I mean, we're getting quite niche there, aren't we, Steve?
Oh, we are, and that's pronounced Carmo, by the way. After the All Black, Ian Carmo Jones. That should be an absolute cracker. Of course, that takes us into the Southern Zone final, and that's between Midwestern and Otamatea. Otamatea, once upon a time, both of these clubs were part of the main whare competition, but have sort of fallen on lean times in recent years. And of course, the big game of the afternoon is going to be the final between last year's losing finalists at Mid Northern, who lost to Waipu last year, and they take on shall we say, we don't quite call them the dark horses, but they've been a revelation this year, and that's the Western Sharks, who are based out in Dargaville. And I think I put a post up on the was it the legend of Marty Banks, just giving a little quick preview of some of the players that are turning out. A lot of Northern players turning out, even the odd Sunwolf player Derek Carpenter, who's turning out from Mid Northern. They have a lot of quality in that Mid-Northern side, but Western Sharks, gee, I'll tell you what, they've been on a roll. They've only been beaten once this year. I think they may have been beaten by Carmo, who they beat on the weekend in the semi-final, 36 points to 19. And, of course, Mid-Northern too strong for old boys. Maris, should be a cracker, Paul.
Now, I can't remember if it was Mid-Northern or Western Sharks, that you had an interview with one of their... with the head coach, and one of the head coaches said that if he won it, he would be breakdancing a la Razor. So which one was that again? I remember we have it on Facebook.
Well, it's definitely not Corey Anderson, because we had him on the show last year. I don't know if Corey would probably want to do a breakdance, but that's Peter Hugo, who's the coach of the Western Sharks. Who basically said, "Yeah, I'll do a breakdance if we win that final." So that we've got to have those cameras close to the touchline or the presentation, Paul. So I'll have to quickly get you to run downstairs to capture that. But hey, a lot of finals on this weekend. Of course, a couple of upsets in Auckland Club Rugby last Saturday as well. Ashwin, I mean to say,
Eden versus Grammar Tech.
Yeah, exactly.
This is like Grammar Tech, they've been there or thereabouts, but Eden's the big surprise, isn't it? A team only about probably 3-4 years ago were sort of like, they're always there or thereabouts, strugglers sort of towards the mid-bottom table part of the table. Really sort of surprised this year and made it through to the final. So last week knocked off Ponsonby, and that was actually played at Western Springs, I believe.
Yep, huge.
Which is the home of Ponsonby.
Yep, and the other upset, Paul, of course, a club that's a little bit's been said about in recent weeks is College Rifles. So there's your top 1 and 2 qualifiers who were beaten. Of course, College Rifles beaten by a late try by Grammar Tech. So once again, great opportunity for Eden. I'll have to look back in the record books to find out when they actually last won the Gallagher Shield, the Ashwin. I'll get you to check on that, but I can recall them having a really good side during the 90s when the likes of Lindsay Harris and, of course, there was Gavin Walsh, a former North Harbour, went over to play for North Harbour. They had some really good guys running around, and, of course, at the moment they've got the 3 Argentinian boys, the Costa brothers, doing the damage. Now, we could see something very interesting. The Costa brothers all played for Eden 85 kg restricted grade in last year's final. So they could win. It's on the cards that they could win an under 85 restricted grade final and also a Gallagher Shield. So what does your records show you, Ashwin?
I'm struggling. I'll be honest with you, and I think I mentioned this before. I really suck at Googling. I'm still basically trying to find something that will tell me, but but interesting, as you say, with the Costa brothers, it's like they've been at Eden for a while, and I think they've even, one of them's even spent a bit of time in the blue and white hoops at NPC level.
Oh yeah, exactly. They're very good, competent footballers. Just great to see. And if we just quickly head across the bridge, of course, North Shore taking on Takapuna, so that's going to be an interesting final in North Harbour Club Rugby. Of course, Takapuna accounting for near neighbours Northcote and North Shore, pulling away from North Harbour Marist, who were a little bit of a surprise in the North Harbour club competition. And we'll quickly check on counties Manukau, because it'll be pretty remiss of us just to see how our friends from Manurewa fared on the weekend, Paul. But just looking at the result, none too well, because they were beaten by Karaka 36-25, and Ardmore Marist, who have been the pace setters through most of the season, beat Patamahoi 35-21. So the final for the McNamara Cup will be between Ardmore Marist and Karaka.
So if I haven't missed it here, I've got from basically on my page here on the left, results of the Gallagher Shield from 1883 through to 2020, when the season was cancelled because of COVID. And I'm looking through this, and I could be missing this time and time again because it's a needle in a haystack. Eden has never won the Gallagher Shield.
Wow.
See, you know, Control F is a great thing to do.
I did Control F. I did Control F, and it came up with nothing.
There we go. Then it must be true.
Yeah. So I'm second guessing myself and saying, oh, maybe I'm still missing it, even though I controlled F it. So yeah, now this will be Eden's, maiden victory in the Gallagher Shield if they can come through on Saturday. So
Wow.
hopefully I can make it along there to see that game and see if Grammar Tech will be obviously try and prevent that from happening. Grammar Tech last won it in 2015, so they've tasted success not too long ago, about 5-6 years ago. So yeah, it'll be somebody winning for since it's for a while.
Wow, and of course Grammar Tech. When was the last time they actually won it? I can recall Teachers, because they
Stephen's not listening to you. He just told you 2015.
Okay, sorry. I was busy looking up some information in terms of the Eden coach. That's David Bateman, who Paul interviewed last year.
Yeah.
I think, and mate, he's a real success story, because I think he started at age group level. So to bring this Eden team through to a Gallagher Shield final is incredible. And just on those Costa brothers. It was Nicholas Costa, who I think has played for Auckland. That's the halfback. Of course, his brother Ignacio Costa, the first five as well. And there's another brother, but he wasn't listed last weekend. But there are three of the brothers. You kind of look through their team, and got to say, there's a lot of no names in that Eden side, even compared to the likes of Ponsonby, who had the likes of Jamie Lane, Auckland player, Blake Gibson, Blues player, Jordan Trainer. So yeah, they had some good players on deck.
Yep.
And wasn't one of the Costas or two of the Costas down in Southland or North about 2 or 3 seasons ago?
Yes.
That's right.
Yes. Yep. They've definitely bounced around the trip. So. Gee whiz, if Eden had to pull this off, I tell you what, that is going to be one heck of a party down at the Grimmelhurst Park headquarters.
Easy to roll out of Eden Park and roll down Sandringham Road, and there you are.
Roll down Sandringham Road. Not far to go, and I would imagine probably the celebrations would be just as big for Grammar Tech. Of course, Grammar Tech missing the likes of Corey Evans, who's away on New Zealand under-20 duty last weekend, but I would imagine he'll probably be freed up to come in the side. And of course, Liam Hallam Eames, who skippers the Grammar Tech team, of course, rumoured to be going to Northland, so it could be his pretty much his swan song for the boys from where are they based these days? Around the Ellerslie area, aren't they?
Grammar Tech. Actually, I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I mean, having a son that plays in Auckland Club Rugby, and you drive around all these venues, and I always get bloody College Rifles and Grammar Tech mixed up. Grammar Tech, they play out of Cornwall Park as well.
Yeah, Cornwall Park. That's it. Cornwall Park and Orake Domain as well, which is Teachers Eastern's ground, and
old grounds.
And of course, they're coached by Joseph Tuatavaki and Nora Tokahere, also involved in the coaching staff. I think Anne Strawn is involved with the coaching staff as well as female Maka, who's involved with the Eden coaching staff. So there you go, some high-powered presence on the coaching bench.
So that's so. Don't forget, on Saturday, myself and Stephen Harris will be on We'll be streaming on the Northland Rugby page, giving you commentary, hoping to get a few interesting halftime chats with some people as well. So do join us for that. Because Northland Rugby, they're the thing going on about this Auckland Rugby, but hey, no, Northland's where it's at, the up north. Since Simon brought it up, we should probably have a quick chat about Super Rugby.
Mm-hmm.
And congratulations to Moana Samoa. No,
Moana Pacific.
Dear me. Who have been granted an unconditional license now for Super Rugby next year. The Fiji Drua is still conditional, and they're still waiting to obviously complete some things. So it's looking at them both being part of a 12-team competition, the format of which is still under discussion between Australia and New Zealand. Essentially, Australia would like to have a conference-style system where they can have an Australian final, and New Zealand doesn't want a conference-style system whatsoever, round robin, and then you play some extra games, but quite who you play hasn't been explained yet, both of which will have their issues, both of which will be complained about. There is no two ways about it. Personally, I would go down the conference route, but I know Archman had his head in his hand on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I just sort of think. First of all, I just sort of I just while I was before I came on the show, I was just on Twitter, and there seems to be some noises that the Fiji Drua announcement is pretty imminent as well. Sounds like that announcement will be coming out of the Australian Rugby Union to ring the bell on that one. So yeah, sounds like that's not too far away to be announced as well. But now, look, I've always been a strong believer. Look, for some, there's enough weeks in the season to play a round robin format, and then to basically have 2 weekends of a weekend of 2 weekends of semi-finals and then a final. There's enough time to do it. We're back down to 12 teams. We're not 14. So, it's just logical. Go back to something that people understood and could follow, and, happy days.
If there were 22 weeks to have the home and away round robin.
Well, no, I didn't say home and away.
I know you didn't.
Okay.
But what they're saying is that just the round robin, which gets you basically 5 or 6 home games a year, and I think from memory, the Super Rugby franchises in New Zealand were saying they need 8 home games to be financially viable. I think it was. So from that point of view, that it's not enough rugby. It's not enough games for them. So they need more rugby than that.
It's funny, it's like they need 8 games to be viable. Well, if actually they pull their finger out of their butts and learn how to market the game problem, they could actually make that money out of 5 or 6 games. It's the fact of their incompetence, the reason why they need the 8 games to actually make enough money out of the season. But that's another story.
That's another story. And when we get on to international rugby, we might talk about the inability to. Actually, no, we've already talked about the inability to market the game, haven't we? We've already been there. We might go back there again. So because they're going to have, or what it sounds like they're going to have, is essentially a round robin and then extra derby games to make it up to the number of games they need. To me, I don't see what the difference in that would be to have basically a conference of 2 conferences of 6 teams. You play everyone in your conference once. That's 5 games. You then play everyone in the opposition conference, and then you play all the other people in your conference again for 5 games. That way, you've got your 16 games there, which is 8 home games. It's in blocks, so it's easy to explain. You then have an Australian final, a New Zealand final, and then a final, and then a Trans-Tasman final. That's how I would do it. If the 2 best teams are the New Zealand teams, well, you know what? The New Zealand final then is the best final. So be it. But this one where, but then again, in all honesty, If you look at NRL, for example, they have a round robin plus some extra games, and they don't have a problem explaining that to their fans. So,
yeah, rugby supporters just seem to have to complain about everything.
Yep. So if it is just round robin with plus some extra games, I just hope that people don't complain about it too much. But I'm sure they'll all be kind of like, oh, well, look, the Australian teams are playing derby games, extra games, therefore they've got an easier schedule. Just enjoy the rugby, please. And whoever comes out top, comes out top.
The Blues!
Yeah, I see on the social network they're still celebrating winning that Trans-Tasman Super Rugby.
The last Super Rugby trophy that there was played.
Why not?
Why not? Hey, there's our South African friends that are celebrating winning the 2019 World Cup and they haven't played a test match since.
Yeah. Oh, no. They've played one game since. They played Georgia.
Two. Hang on. The other one was cancelled, wasn't it?
The other one was cancelled, yeah.
Rugby's coming home.
So
we didn't say who's home, did we? We just said home.
Yeah, to a home. Yeah. Home. To a home near you. I mean, look, at the end of the day, New Zealand and Australia, the rugby unions need to understand they need each other, and they need to come to some form of format that works for both of them. And they should be looking at what produces the best test players, because that's at the end of the day, that's what Super Rugby is for, and that will give you that will actually draw some sort of crowd, so it's not purely subsidised entirely by international rugby, but actually pays some of its own way. If it ever could actually be self-sustaining, wow, that'd be a miracle. It would be quite nice, but we're a long, long way off from that. Let's be honest.
Actually, just with LB Safa's comment in there, I think, and I'm not going to say all Black fans, but the All Black fans that I know, it's always been a long-term debate within the fans that I know in terms of, you win a World Cup and you lose every test in between. Are you happy with that, or would you rather win all the test matches in between and not win the World Cup? And it's just like all the guys that I know, it's been, and it's just like, even when we've won the World Cup, it's just like, oh yeah, that's done. What's next? We've never actually, like, as I said, this is within the group of friends that I know. I'm not saying all Black fans are like this, but the ones that I know are always basically been along the lines of, yep, so great, celebrate it for a few weeks, we've won it, but it's like, what are we doing now to win it again next time? Not resting on your laurels of the fact that you just won it.
I've got to say, LB, when we won or New Zealand won the World Cup in 2011, we didn't celebrate. It was like a release. We were actually relieved. Thinking, thank God it was a bit of monkey off our back. And I think probably winning it in England in 2015 when we beat Australia, I think that was probably more of a celebration because it kind of proved, we'd won both our World Cups at home. Yes, we can.
Win away.
And even when we didn't win it in 2019, it was kind of no big deal. In a way, the team went into that World Cup with some concerns anyway. So I think, it's just made me think, if you've won something, why not celebrate it?
Yeah. I mean, like, why not celebrate it?
I just point out, folks, that the 2003 World Cup was clearly the best, and we should be celebrating that still. And all the other ones in between don't really matter. And
I'm getting feedback in my line, Nashwin. Are you getting that same scratching sound?
I don't know. I think the lines are down at the moment.
Yeah, I think it is, mate. I think there's a gremlin. There's a gremlin in a white jersey on the stream at the moment.
But I mean, again, though, coming back to it, I mean, I don't know, maybe it might even sound like a little bit of arrogance, I suppose, but as an All Blacks supporter, it's always been about the next game. It's never been about the last game. I mean, you talk about the last game for a couple of days, but it's always about the next game, and it's just like, hang on. Yeah, so that's great. We won the last one. How are we going to win the next one? It's just like when we look at the game against Fiji, we know that there were some gaps in our performance, and it's the fact is that we're looking forward to next week and saying, okay, what are they doing to change it, to remedy it? Going back to 2011, it was like, yeah, we've won the one at home. What are we putting in place to make sure we win in 2015 to get back to backs?
Yeah, it was great to see such a good contest after the week before, and Fiji absolutely bought it, and the way their forwards just climbed into the All Blacks at breakdown was absolutely fantastic. It had Jason Ryan's fingerprints all over that particular performance.
You're saying Jason Ryan's Crusader-esque infringing at the breakdown fingerprints all over it.
I'll tell you what. One thing, if you've watched a bit of French rugby, one thing that they do really, really well, they actually, usually with the tackle player, sometimes they'll actually go down, but they'll actually hold the player down so the player can't quite release the ball, which slows it down. So yes, you are holding the player in. And if you heard the conversation with Paul Williams and the skipper of Fiji, he said, listen, you can't just, what he was basically saying, you've got to lift the ball, and they weren't lifting the ball. They were actually just holding the player, ensuring the next best thing was to basically
slow it down.
I know Paul Williams copped a bit of criticism, but I actually think he was actually quite accurate. He was actually quite accurate on the breakdown. Sure, there was a forward pass, but man, we've seen a lot of games this year where forward passes have been missed. It's just a shame. Fiji had been in isolation. Maybe the conditioning in the last 20 minutes probably didn't quite help them.
Yeah, or the firepower off the bench.
Yeah, that as well.
Right. I mean, you got a Whitelock and a Coles coming off the bench, and they did make quite a bit of difference. You've got obviously the energy levels in the Fijian team coming down, and then you send on a Whitelock and a Coles, and let's be honest. I mean, Brodie Retallick coming back, obviously got a bit of work to do to get back up to the levels that he was at.
Yeah.
If you were picking,
having heard Wayne Smith talk about the fact that Retallick's playing the best rugby of his career and he's fitter than he's ever been. But
the fittest.
Yeah,
but they also mentioned the fact that he's about 4 kilos down on where the weight that he left when he was playing for the All Blacks, so before he went to Japan. So playing against the physical Fijian team, that extra 4 kilos obviously appears to be making a difference.
He looked quite light to me.
Yep. He needed a few rice bubbles.
So I'll be honest, I've not actually seen the game yet.
Oh yeah, of course, because you were at the Tonga Samoa game.
I was at the
Samoa Tonga game.
The Samoa Tonga game. This was Samoa's home game at Mount Smart, as opposed to Tonga's home game down in FMG Stadium next weekend.
Paul, I was going to say one thing that came through really clear is, with a lot of these Fijian boys playing in Europe, you can just see the massive improvement in their in terms of what they're actually doing in their forward play.
Structure.
The structure, yeah. You actually can see the structure. And listen, I was really pleased for Timo Meanavua, who played for Northland for the last couple of seasons or so. Crazy to think that he was playing in a club final against Mid-Northern for Waipu a year ago, and a year later he's playing in a very good performance against the All Blacks down in Dunedin. So it just goes to show, we could be watching.
I think one of the things, though, but this was, whilst the Fijians and the Pacific players in general, their ability is beyond doubt, but their professionalism as to what they eat, how they train, those sort of things. Let's be honest, they haven't been great necessarily in the past. I think being in a European team environment in someone like Bristol, for Samir Adrada, obviously he wasn't playing because he's at the Sevens. He's off to the Olympics. But places like that, they're not going to allow you. They're going to teach you, and you're going to have to change and become professional about your nutrition, about your preparation, to keep your contract. And so that's part of what you're seeing with those players.
Sort of what I was going to mention also is the fact. I mean, most New Zealand fans watching that game, All Black supporters would have been sort of thinking, oh, it's Fiji, we'll put 60, 70 on them. And I think one of the most enlightening tweets for most people, I mean, that didn't know, I mean, we were, as Paul's just alluded to, we've sort of got an inkling of what's been happening, but most All Black fans haven't. Is Lema Sopawanga mentioned the fact is that if you're watching European rugby, you've seen how these guys are ripping it up in the Northern Hemisphere and how well they're playing up there. So anybody who's been watching Northern Hemisphere rugby or following it knows how good these Fijian players actually are and aren't surprised at the performance that they put in last week.
Yeah. And you can see those gradual improvements with teams also like Argentina. You know, the more professional these guys get, the better they are going to get. But I just want to highlight a guy who came out of Heartland Rugby, who was playing for South Canterbury a few seasons ago.
Yeah.
And that's Johnny Dyer, who was just outstanding over the ball. And in France, I just forget which club that John plays for, but man, he's a beast in France. He's considered one of the better loosies running around over there. So once again, it's a lesson to anybody who is looking at players who have got potential. Don't ever discount anybody running around at the Heartland level. There's some good rugby players running around in that division.
Everybody can't play in a professional team because there's so many spots. So there are definitely players that are running around in amateur competitions that just haven't been noticed or haven't been signed up because positions are already full. And so people aren't looking, but doesn't mean that they're not there.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, Big Carl was a good example of someone who went from club rugby to being an All Black starter in basically in a season because he just got the opportunity. Someone got injured, he stepped in at the Chiefs and played well. So
look, and I don't want to. I mean, obviously, this could take up the rest of the show if we wanted it to, but you know, I'm just going to touch on the eligibility debate that's been going on. Fiji has shown that regardless of what the current eligibility rules are, is that you can create a team, an international quality tier 1 team. These discussions around the players not being able to play for Tonga or Samoa and they're playing for the All Blacks, the person is making the choice on who they want to play for. Okay, the reality is, once you play NPC rugby in New Zealand, so I mean, let's face it, most of the conversation is around players through the New Zealand structure. Once you've played in the NPC competition in New Zealand, if you're any good, you will be noticed. At that stage, you haven't signed for the New Zealand Rugby. You are not obligated to play for the New Zealand Rugby Football Union. And at that stage, if you so choose that your heart wants to play for Samoa, your heart wants to play for Tonga, look for an overseas contract where you're going to make more money or just as much money in Super Rugby level, and that will allow you then to play for Samoa, play for Tonga. So the argument is out the window about this. Is that the New Zealand Rugby Union is hoovering up all this talent and stockpiling it, and it stops them able to play where their heart wants to play. It's your choice. You choose the immediate money, or you choose your heart and the potential money, because that's what it is. If you go with your heart, you play for Tonga, you play for Samoa, you will get seen, and the money will come, just not today. It'll come in 2 to 3 years' time, and it will be bigger than what Super Rugby is.
I suspect with somebody like Sevu Reece, there's a little bit of regret that maybe he didn't take the opportunity to play for his home country. But boy, I've got another scenario. Say he doesn't get into trouble and he ends up at Ulster. Is there an opportunity that he ends up playing on the wing for Ireland as well? Yeah, there's probably that opportunity. There's probably that opportunity as well. You know, I spoke before about Timo Maana-Vanua. He made it pretty clear. I was have a chat to him. He said, "Oh man, I want to play for Fiji," and that's why he didn't re-sign with Northern. He got an opportunity to get an overseas contract. He was in. I think he played for the Blues development squad on a couple of occasions, but decided to take the path of, you know what, I'm going to play for Fiji here. I think he had played under 20s for Fiji as well. So whether that made him a non-eligibility player for New Zealand, I'm not 100% sure. But another one, Takiaho, I was really disappointed when I heard that he'd been pulled into the All Black squad, because you know what? Next World Cup rolls around, they're going to pick 3 hookers, and I already know who the 3 hookers are.
We know who the 3 hookers are,
and
unless injury comes in.
Samasoni doesn't come into that group, and once again, here's a chance to play for. He's had what, three seasons, Paul, of Super Rugby? Is he in his 3rd season?
I'd have thought 2 maybe, rather than 3. But because the season that Sevu Reece was supposed to be heading overseas, Samasoni was matching Sevu Reece try for try for Waikato. And they're both. So yeah.
Look, I'll highlight a player that this in reverse, right? When we're talking about guys, it's really about making the right choice for yourself, what you want to do in your choice. Okay, and that's Nathiwa, Isa Nathiwa, and the fact is that he only ever wanted to play for the All Blacks. He's a Kiwi through and through, but he was 18 and he got the opportunity to be picked in a Fijian squad. He got on the field and never touched the ball. But he only ever wanted to play for the All Blacks. But one bad decision by him to go and take part in a Fijian squad meant that he never got to do what his heart was about, actually playing for the All Blacks.
But I think the Fiji Drua and the Moana Pacifica will, more so than Moana Pacifica, because obviously Samoa and Fiji are having much more a problem, as we can see from Fiji's results, than Fiji at the moment around retaining and having talent available. So I think that will be really useful for them. It was a question I put to I think it was a Samoan head coach at the weekend during my interviews. He was very positive about that coming in. LB says, how do we get the island teams, Japan and Georgia, more games against Tier 1 nations as well? I was going to say, at the moment, they're getting more games against Tier 1 nations this year than they've had in ages, and everyone's complaining about how they're not competitive games to watch.
Yeah.
So
pandemics are the answer to more Tier 1 games.
Yeah, more pandemics.
Here's something quite warped, guys. You've got the likes of Japan, who have got 8 Tongans in their squad, who would invariably be first team starters for Tonga if they were representing Tonga. So it is a little crazy. I do wonder, like the rugby league team, I think a lot of Tongan players who play in the NRL are attracted to Tonga because on a given day, they can knock off all the best rugby league sides in the world. I do wonder if both Samoa and Tonga were a little bit like Fiji at the moment, where they were very, very competitive against Tier 1 nations. I wonder if there would be more of an attraction for those players to think, you know what, my country of birth is doing really, really well. I want to go and play for them. And I suspect that if that happens moving forward, I think you will get a lot of Pacific Island players who will want to go and represent their own country, and with a little bit of help of Moana Pacific as well, Paul. But I really do hope we actually do that Super Rugby franchise justice, and I'm talking about, I'm hearing 80% of the team will be available for Pacific Islands, but geez, wouldn't you love to see somebody like a Vaea Fafita, who's basically, I don't know, roaming around in the wilderness at the moment. I don't know what he's doing. Put him into that side just to
I think he signed with a French club, isn't it? I thought he signed.
Yeah, I know. I'm just sort of just sort of throwing a name out there.
Look, I mean, there's nothing, and interesting. You've just raised something there as well that I was actually thinking about. There's the fact is that you have to be careful. That Moana Pacific side could actually end up with quite a few players that aren't eligible still for Tonga or Samoa, right? At the end of the day, it's a franchise. And they've got to pick. They've got to be careful. They've got to balance between picking players that are Tonga Samoa eligible, but making sure that team's competitive. Because if that team's not competitive, it's going to be detrimental towards everything else that you want to achieve around building your Tonga and Samoa Tier 1 sides.
I think they're putting down as part of their charter that they'll have 80% of their squad is Tonga and Samoa eligible.
Oh no, I get that, right?
No.
But the problem is that let's say you fix that, you put that line on the sand, it's 80%. What if you can't fill your roster with 80% of quality players?
Yeah.
And now you're using, you're going to the clubs in Tonga, you're going to the clubs in Samoa, and you're pulling out guys that aren't ready for that level, aren't capable of that level. And now you're jeopardizing your team performance and everything that goes with it in terms of building that following. Who's going to follow a team that's getting beaten by 50, 60 points each week?
Yeah, look, if they said, look, we will promise to be there after 3 years, because we're putting in talent pathways from the islands or from blah blah blah, then I get it. Apparently, the Cook Islands are also going to be part of Moana Pacifica eligible players. So interesting one there. Cook Islands will be playing the loser out of Fiji and Samoa the following week, so in 2 weekends' time, as part of the Rugby World Cup qualifiers, by the way, just as an
Tonga
FYI.
and Samoa.
Whoever I said, yes, absolutely. Whoever you said. So yes. So Craig, what's the difference between Fiji and Samoa Tonga at the moment? Well, look, I mean, Fiji's got a high population, right? Is got to be part of it.
I'll check it, but Fiji's population is about 1 million people
compared to Samoa and Tonga, which is
bugger all. Well, in the hundreds of thousands, low hundreds of thousands. I think 200,000, something 300,000, something like that.
So yeah, so being 4 or 5 times the size of them is a helper to start off with.
Look, there you go. So I'm just short. It's in 2020 it was 900,000. We'll call it rounded up to 900,000 for Fiji. That is.
So Fiji are considerably larger than Samoa and Tonga. So that's obviously quite a big one. But Tonga and Samoa have got bigger populations in New Zealand as sort of first and second generation people, and quite a few of the players from especially from South Auckland will actually play for those teams. Sorry, Arthur?
Yep. So Samoa population just short of 200,000. Yep. Tonga, get this. I'm blown away by this figure. Tonga population is just over 100,000.
Wow.
That's nothing, basically, isn't it? I mean, when we're talking in the scheme of what we're talking about, and you're trying to build a team out of that population, and then now you understand why they say, that like Auckland has a larger Samoan population than Samoa itself, and probably the same for Tonga as well.
Yeah, it actually puts a few things that never get spoken about into
context.
Into context.
Yep.
As Simon also points out, they are different ethnic groups as well. So Fijians are Micronesians, whereas Tonga and Samoa are Polynesians as well. But I think as far as difference as far as their rugby team goes, it's more about the population numbers than their ethnic roots.
There's even, I think, in recent times, a couple of Tahitians have played for France as well. Vahamahina, who's the big lock, is our French Polynesia as well, and there's another forward as well, which just escapes my mind as well. So they're tapping in wherever they can.
Yeah, and I mean, LB the Safa makes a point that look that they have problems with players in South Africa too. Absolutely, you do. And he reckons that they can make 3 full Lions squads, i.e., 40 odd players each. Yeah, no, I mean, when you actually look at them, so you're suggesting there, LB the Safa, that you've got 120 players of South Africa playing overseas. No, I think you'll find it's well over 200. I think Australia's also got about 200 players overseas, and New Zealand the number of players from South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia playing overseas is mind-boggling in professional teams. And we are talking several hundred. And if you think in New Zealand, we have 5 Super Rugby franchises, 30 odd, 35 or so players in each squad. So you look like 150, 170 odd Super Rugby players, and think that New Zealand have got over 200 or around about 200 odd players overseas. There's as many there's more players playing overseas professional rugby than there is at home.
So this
the
is
same
from
applies to South Africa as it does for Australia as well.
This is from 2018, so obviously the numbers will be a little bit. But back in 2018, there were 61 ex-All Blacks, not New Zealand players, and not provincial level players or Super Rugby players, just ex-All Blacks, 61 playing in Europe.
Yeah, so it is. Yeah, there's, and as I say, it's similar for the Springboks as well, and also for the Wallabies. Yeah, the number of these players going overseas is massive.
You sort of think it's got to be. It's at some stage it has to be detrimental to those home nations in trying to put their own teams together. If you're filling your provincial sides, for want of a term, with so many international players, especially in key positions as well. You know, if there's a good first five running around the world somewhere in the Southern Hemisphere, they're going to snap them up. If there's a good first halfback running around the Southern Hemisphere, they're going to snap them up. You know, for the development of their own players, it's got to have an impact at some stage, doesn't it?
It does. I looked at the number of the players who left after the 2015 Rugby World Cup and the players who left after the 2019 Rugby World Cup from the three major Southern Hemisphere teams. So obviously Springboks,
Australia, New Zealand,
Wallabies, and All Blacks. And whilst in 2015 you saw quite a lot of wingers and back three players disappearing, in 2019 it was locks. There was an absolute pillaging of locks from both South Africa and from the Springboks and the Wallabies. Pretty much all their locks went overseas. The All Blacks were the only side to hold on to their locks from their squad. So I think that's probably the only South African who didn't go overseas, and something similar. I think all of the locks in the Wallabies squad went overseas. So yeah, it's lock is becoming one of the best, or one of the sort of best paid, or one of the most sought after roles at the moment.
Paul, you could arguably say that Australia at the moment are playing with their third string locks. When you think of Will Skelton, the Arnold brothers. Now there was also the lock who left the Queensland Reds, and then
Isaac Rodder.
Isaac Rodder as well. And when you think about their locks at the moment, Sulakai Lotto and is it Matt Phillip? I think you could arguably say those are their third
back
locks.
rollers. Well, Sulakai Lotto is really a sixth that's been converted to lock.
Yep. So James Laura asks, is there a cap on overseas that clubs are allowed to pick? So yes,
different rules in different competitions, isn't it?
The different rules in different competitions, and those rules have got so many loopholes. It all becomes very strange and convoluted. But essentially, I think in the Premiership, from memory, I think it's 2 players you're allowed, but that doesn't include players who are from Pacifica countries. They're given an exemption, and also from South Africa because of the Colpack ruling and EU regulations around travel. Now, obviously, with Brexit, that may change. So,
the Colpack's going to start melting.
So the whole I just hey, look, if you know what's going to happen with Brexit, still good luck to you. I mean, who knows? So yes, so there are those sort of sides of things. So the RFU is trying to make the Premiership teams have as many England qualified players as possible by basically bribing them, and the French have done a similar thing as well. Basically, you get more money from the RFU if you have more England qualified players in your matchday squads. When I say bribing them, we're literally using cash to try and drive it.
But aren't we starting to just see possibly the start of, because there's so much money in French rugby and Japanese rugby, you're starting to see just the start of, that's great, England, English players going to France, going to Japan. Can we see that? Do you think we'll see that sort of expand and grow as dollars become, as they look, the dollars are there. Japan's got truckload of dollars. France has got truckload. We know if you go to Japan, you extend your rugby life as well, your shelf life. So the dollars and extension of shelf life, pretty attractive proposition, isn't it?
we're seeing it to Japan definitely, and I mean, someone like Corey Hill from Wales, for example. Now all the Welsh players had to take a 25% pay cut, and basically a few agents said, "Well, look, if you're going to make us force 25% pay cut, then also that's breach of contract, so we can leave if we want to." And he's with Alwyn Jones, as you'd expect to be retiring after this Lions tour. You'd think Corey Hill was next up to be a starting Welsh lock. Potentially even a captain candidate, but has turned that down and gone to Japan because of the money. Because he's just So yes, it will impact, especially it's definitely impacting Wales. You'd expect it to impact England's. We've seen it impact England's fringe players. If you think of players, Adebayon went over a few years back. I mean, so did Stephen Armitage, for example. Both those guys went over.
Andy Good, I think he went over to Japan as well.
There was a name that's just been thrown.
Yep. It is impacting.
There's a name that's been thrown around just in the last month from England, and I can't remember it at all, but I know there was a player that's just in the last month or two that's been talking about will he or won't he go to Japan?
Who?
As I was saying, I can't remember the name, unfortunately, but it's just, yeah.
But so it's I think we'll definitely see. I think your first choice players are fine, and it's similar to we're seeing here, like the All Blacks. Your first choice players stay, but players like Laumape, that's number 6 you just mentioned from the Hurricanes earlier,
Fafita,
etc. Those sort of people, players are going overseas because they will pick up 1 or 2 All Blacks caps extra, but not enough to make it worth their while staying, essentially. Simon makes a good point there, that look, the Premiership will probably keep the same rules because of the European Champions Cup. Yeah, probably. But it'll be interesting when those rules don't apply to Wales, Scotland and England, whether they'll keep how those rules will change. We'll have to wait and see on that one. Nocturnal Right says, are clubs in France and England being used as tax loss projects for their rich owners? I have no idea, to be honest with you, but they do seem to suspiciously all make a loss, except for one.
I was going to say,
that would be
Ashram was thinking about is Owen Farrell.
Yeah.
Could be heading to Japan. Also, I think George Cruz also has gone to Japan, but I think he went. Yeah,
he left after the last Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, he left after the Rugby. Yeah, exactly. But Owen Farrell.
Yes, Owen Farrell.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean that's a. It doesn't get much bigger than that in English rugby. Let's be honest.
Hey, I just want to who was it? Was it Simon or was it James that mentioned about? Oh, Mike James talking about the, overseas players in Mitre 10. Look, to my mind, again, Mitre 10 could be so much more than what it's allowed to be at the moment. If they relax some of the rules around the governance of it, obviously, and they got smarter people running the provincial game in the future. I'm not talking about next year or so. There's obviously money issues at that level, but if they start to turn the Titanic around, and there's no reason why in the future, in say 3, 4, 5 years time, that they could get that competition to a level where you could maybe not your first 15 of your internationals, but really good overseas players coming in to have, because you do have players globally that just want to come experience rugby in New Zealand, right? Because of what rugby is in this country. I mean, we saw it with Haskell when he came and played rugby down here for one season. I mean, that was a step backwards in dollars for him for sure. It had to be. But it was about coming to experience rugby in New Zealand. So there'll be guys that will be.
Know.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that, but I wasn't sure. Yeah, he did let people know, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah.
For example, last year, we had Callaway come and play
from Aussie
in Mitre 10, and he's playing for the Wallabies this year.
Yep.
So, and obviously, it's by the way, just remind you, it's Bunnings NPC this year, folks. Just from a sponsor's point of view, So yeah, I mean, so in Kellaway was there. We've had other players come over, and from Australia more so than from than other places. The money just is not there. Put bluntly,
No, well, that's what I'm saying.
As you
Is it's
say,
like,
Archie, it has to be.
they have
to
to
be
get
coming
smarter
with the
about it.
experience, but players like Kellaway, Stephen Harris, you're going to help me here with the Northland first 5'8".
Jack DeBrasini.
Jack DeBrasini came over, improved his game, got a contract with the Chiefs, then got himself an overseas contract through that as well. So there are some players who see it as a way of improving their game and showing their worth from that point of view.
Who was the French guy, the prop? I can see picture his face, but I can't remember his name. Played for Auckland.
Christian Califano.
Yeah, came and played for Auckland in the NPC.
How many decades ago was that?
Oh, I mean, look, it was probably 2003, so it is a while ago. But I mean, yeah. But look, honestly, when you look at what's happening with NPC today, and you go to 2003, go have a look at some footage of the crowds in 2003. They weren't a hell of a lot more back then than they are today.
So yes, it's I mean, LB the Safa says, yeah, it's hard to get French competition going well these days. The Curry Cup has all become the Curry Cup has unfortunately has definitely faded, and it's been a bit of a what, Ashwin?
I was just going to say, I talked about getting smarter around how the hell we achieve this. And Aaron says that third-party sponsors, and it's just like you go through the country, and there's people in regions that are still passionate about rugby and own businesses where they've got money, and they'll if you've got to pitch it right, but they will come to the party. I mean, again, going back a very long time, Carlos Spencer was gone from Auckland Rugby, and I've forgotten the guy's name. It was a Fijian guy actually, but loved Auckland Rugby. Threw $1 million at them to help keep Carlos Spencer. RTS
isn't coming without some third-party financial sponsorship as well. Let's be honest.
Let's hope that sponsor gives them lots of highballs to catch.
We do have it at Super Rugby level, but not at NPC level.
Yep. It's just getting smarter there. That's what the point is. Yep. Getting smarter in the way that we govern our games and run the game.
Yeah, it looks like they've up their ticket prices this year, which is a bit, which seems a bit of an odd decision. But there we go.
It should be going the other way.
So yes, from that one. They work at the local butchers Monday to Friday. Look, the man butcher likes the Warriors. He doesn't like rugby union. Get it right.
But that was our friend. Was it Liam Burr or something? The dude that came and played somewhere down in Thames Valley Rugby and then got picked up by Waikato.
No, he was working at the local stables.
Yeah, but he wasn't playing for Waikato. He was ripping it up for Thames Valley or somewhere like that, and then he got picked up by Waikato.
He was playing for Hautapu in the Waikato competition and got picked up into that one. A bit like the people down in I've got it. I was going to say Morrinsville, but it's not because it's the other side of Hamilton. But they've got a sawmill there, so the sawmill sorry,
Kawerau?
No,
that's the other side of Hamilton, but it's a sawmill country.
But there's a local sawmill there, Otapu. Otapu. I forgot the pronunciation right. It's got a sawmill, and hence, they'll have some overseas players for their club that'll get some that'll work in the sawmill for that as well. So it is the Bulls have got a couple of billionaire South Africans back in these days and have gone out on a shopping spree. So there we go. That explains why Jake White's doing so well there. Oh, dear me. So, look, we started the show. We're right over time, and I want to watch the Wallabies game as well against the French. That's against Le Bleu. That's coming up in 55 minutes. But we talked about at the beginning of the show about the lack of media interest in the Moana, the Samoa versus Tonga game, and it was a very small crowd there as well. The All Blacks versus Fiji, apparently that crowd was about 15,000. When you think the Forsyth Bar can get up to 30,000 for a rugby game, only half full, that's bad.
Didn't look like it was half full on the TV. I mean, we've seen half full from Super Rugby games. It didn't look like half full.
Did they?
Weird.
Well, did they have a so what they have a tendency to, or what they can do is they have a temporary stand behind one of the posts, and if they don't put that up, then obviously it makes all the other stands look fuller. So I don't know if that was up or not.
You know, it just makes a mockery of Super Rugby crowds, right? When I mean, the number of times when we know that for Super Rugby that temporary stand does not go up, and then we get told that there were 20,000 people at a Highlanders game, and it's just like that game against the All Blacks Fiji. Those that didn't look very empty to me when I'm watching it, and there's only 15,000 there.
I was going to say.
Yeah, so Cornflake said, one end stand was closed. There we go.
Yeah, that's where they park the trucks.
I was about to say, Paul, after Fiji's performance last Saturday in Dunedin, you'd hope that they'd get a much better crowd rock up to Hamilton this weekend, because I'm pretty sure there'll be a bit of expectation. Hopefully the Fijians can put on a performance like that again.
Well, I was going to say 2 hours or 3 hours before this show, I got a media release from New Zealand Rugby, which is very rare. So I was a bit surprised to receive this, to be honest with you, to tell me that
they're going up the ranks, mate. Going up for the ranks.
This is the first ever media release I've received from a New Zealand Rugby, I think.
But hang on, you're never going to get another one because that's embargo to 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, and you're releasing it now.
you're going up in the world. Hopefully,
I'll just quickly check it. Actually, no, it's not embargo. What they are saying is that basically there are less than 2,000 tickets left for the game this weekend, which is that's good news.
Yeah. Wow. So that suggests to me there might have been a trainer thinking that, like you said before, Ashwin, that the public down there just thought, the All Blacks are going to rock up and put 60 or 70 on these guys. But I think, fortunately for rugby, I think it's woken a few people up that this Fijian team is really good. Guys, I just want before we go, just want to share a couple of stats. We spoke about the stats, how big the islands are in terms of their population, but in New Zealand, in terms of demographics, there's 82,300 people who identify as being a Tongan here in New Zealand, and in terms of Samoan, there's 182,721. I would imagine most of that population live in this very Auckland area.
Well, your Auckland area, my Waihi area. There's not that good.
It's probably more Englishmen down there.
Hey, there's gold in them there hills. James has asked us for predictions for tonight. What are your predictions then, Ashwin, for France?
Oh, look, I mean, I know a lot of people were saying last week that the Wallabies were lucky to win that game after the hooter, but to me, they were actually unlucky not to be ahead well into the game. They were basically all over France last week. I think with the extra week together, fine tuning, I think that the Wallabies will do it quite easily, probably by 20 plus points.
Ouch!
I'm in Ashwin's camp. I believe the same as well. They created a lot of opportunities.
Yep.
They just didn't finish
them.
I think credit to the French. They took their opportunities.
Yep.
Are they going to get any better? I don't think they will.
And you got to think the French are missing quite a few. I mean, like they haven't got the old non-stick factor with Dupont there. I mean, we're talking about him being, the challenger to Aaron Smith as the best halfback in the world, sort of thing. So I know LB will be sort of having conniptions there, but we're sort of like Dupont's the one that globally we're talking about. A while ago, saying he was the best halfback in the world. So, and he's not there. So, French haven't got the stronger side there. You'd expect the Wallabies to do better, and they should do tonight.
Yeah, I think last weekend the Wallabies came out and were not ready for the intensity of Test rugby, and it took them a while to get themselves up to speed. And when they did, they butchered a couple of opportunities. Well, at least 3 opportunities I can remember. And then ended up, as you say, just getting over the line. So I'm going Aussies by 3. I'm not. I don't think it's going to be a 20-point blowout, but I think, as you say, I think the Aussies were the better team last week, even if they did require the French to really fumble the ball and throw the game away in the last seconds of the game.
Last seconds? It was after the hooter. They couldn't kick a ball out after the hooter.
So yes. So there we go. Any other points, boys, or should we wrap it up there?
Oh, just sort of like agree with that. I mean, like I've always said that, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we always talk about, and I think LB might have mentioned, where's Australian rugby going? At the end of the day,
sorry, we didn't answer that one.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you only need 23 good players to make a test match squad. So, and Australia's probably got enough to do that. It's the element for them is a bit of belief, especially particularly against the All Blacks, because it's been so long since they've tasted that. Apart from one-off win here and a one-off here, consistent success against the All Blacks, it's really a mind game issue for them, I reckon now.
Yeah, look, if you want to know where is rugby in Australia, look, it's been through the doldrums, it's hit bottom, and it is slowly on the rise again. We've seen record crowds in Super Rugby for some of their games this year. They've got a new broadcaster who's actually positive about the game and not trying to bash it the whole time, which is shocking. Look, I think look, it's got a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that it's in robust health in Australia, but I think it is on the rebound, on the growth path from being at a very low ebb. They seem to have got some people in place now who are doing the right kind of thing, and are getting the results of some of the good decisions made as well are coming through. So I think it's heading. So yeah, not great, but it's going the right way.
And just in this series, they've actually got quite a few key players with huge potential out with injuries. Like, and you're talking about Jordan Pataya, who's not there, and a couple other players who
James O'Connor,
got a huge amount of potential, and we know it. We've seen it. We've seen glimpses of it. They just they're out with injury and the like. So I think there's some good signs there. They've got a lot of work to do still, but to me, they've got some positive signs there.
I agree. I'd just love to see them at some stage in the future be able to access the Arnold brothers, Will Skelton, somebody like that. I'm really surprised, and maybe Dave Rennie's already reached out to him. If not, it's Jack Debrasini, who is playing up in Japan, still only 28 years old. But man, he'd be an ideal first 5 to have in that particular company. Runs the game really well. Good goal kicker. No disrespect to the young fella that they had running around last weekend. James O'Connor's an improved footballer. You think of somebody like Samu Kerevi, who's also playing for the Australian Sevens team at the Olympics. He's a genuine line breaker. They have got some talent. It's just, I suppose, for Rennie is just getting his best 15 on the paddock.
And then you got that 10 at, unfortunately he's playing at the Waratahs, but the 10 at the Waratahs, he's a young kid, and you can see, he's a liner or Larkham in the making. But he's only, 20 odd, isn't he?
Yeah. I think we should.
Yeah. The problem with Serevi is that, not Serevi, dear me, with Kerevi, is that he's heading overseas at the end of the season. And I'm not sure.
Has he reached 60 tests?
I think he's got enough tests.
Because that's their benchmark, isn't it? 60, and you can come back as an international.
It's
Corin Betty, not Kerevi. What am I talking about? Corin Betty, not Kerevi. Corin Betty is heading overseas. Sorry. Yeah. Just trying to find out how many caps he's got. But yeah, he's heading overseas, unfortunately. So whilst he is being, whilst obviously they are still using him, I don't know if he'll get over that 60 caps or not before
35
heads over.
He's only got 35.
Oh, 35 was nowhere near then. Jeez, that's a shame. Cool. Anyway, thank you very much, Stephen Harris. Thank you very much, Ashwin. Another show that didn't go quite where I expected it to, but still very enjoyable. And I hope you all enjoyed it who've joined us in the live chat in the Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. I'm going to watch the Wallabies versus Les Bleus. So do join me at DrivingMaul on Twitter for that. And I'll also bring you post-match reaction to that game as well this evening around about midnight. God, it's going to be a late one.